Hello, hello. Oh, I need my. Stop the recording. Damn it. Pause. Okay, now we're recording.
For the record, with the recording started, even though I haven't tried to type and change my name while I'm driving, I am Ryan Giesecke, not Trinity Valley Beekeepers Association.
Yes, thank you. The weird thing about these recordings that I noticed is that it doesn't show who all is actually joined to the group until somebody talks. And then it flashes to their screen.
Okay, well, I will speak, so I am here and accounted for.
Okay. And you're Rex Smith, not Harmony Hollow Apiaries. Well, I guess you're both.
I'm a one-man show.
Okay, let me catch up the recording on what I've done so far and what we've discussed. We had a couple of cleanup things left over from the last meeting, mostly in some definitions, where we defined, let me scroll to the section. I think I'd know this well enough to know exactly where stuff is. Okay, Article 3 definitions. We had a swarm removal specialist and a colony removal professional. And those terms were not consistent throughout. So I changed the wording in the definitions to match what we had used below. There's still a couple of other definitions which I'm not sure we need now that we've cleaned that up. So I'll wait until y'all can see the document so you can see whether or not we need this. I'm going to highlight it so that, and put a comment.
Okay. One thing I had a question about that I was thinking through after last time, and I guess we could go ahead and talk through a little bit, is I believe these bylaws allow us to have board meetings by email.
By what?
By email?
Yes.
I have never had board meetings by email, and I'm trying to envision how that works.
Our club does it occasionally.
I send an email saying the board meeting has started, and
they are less official meeting. I guess meeting isn't the right word for it. The board is allowed to conduct business via email is probably the better way to phrase it. In other words, we have an email list just of board members. And so when you send an email, it goes to everybody in the board. It's really kind of good for things like, for example, in our club, if we wanted to buy an extractor or something, let's just make something up. And let's say, Ryan Giesecke was selling an extractor for $100. We could send the email out, and whoever heard about it said, hey, what do y'all think about this? And then somebody chimes in, yes, I think that's a good idea. I move that we buy the extractor. And then somebody would second it. And then as soon as we get enough yes votes to constitute a quorum or a majority of everybody, then it passes.
Okay.
In other words, we don't need a full-blown meeting in order to get little bits of business done.
Yeah. Okay.
That's never outlined anywhere other than to say we're allowed to do business or allowed to have meetings by email.
Yeah. Okay. And I hesitated a little bit over that just because if meetings were done formally and required a motion and a second, and then a vote, and a quorum to confirm that they were present before business could even be put to a vote. I struggle to imagine it being anything that could possibly be faster than just scheduling a real board meeting. And secondly, just kind of muddled.
Surprisingly, it usually is pretty fast. I mean, it's usually within a day or two.
I'm assuming because it's done kind of informally, though, right? I mean, if I said, okay, first off, we're going to have a board meeting tomorrow, and it's going to be by email, and then tomorrow I sent an email saying, okay, who's in attendance at the board meeting? And then we took motions, and then we took seconds, and then we took votes.
Right.
If it was formally, it would be largely unfunctional.
The only difference between what I described and what you described is that there was no called meeting. But the minute that somebody in an email says, I move to do something, then we treat it as an official meeting action. And since everybody on the board is getting the emails, it's assumed that they're all present.
So I guess, and maybe I'm getting a little bit too detail oriented here, but I guess I'm left wondering if we need to, in some way, detail that an email meeting doesn't have to be as formal. I mean, I think we have a process for calling board meetings. If that doesn't apply to a meeting that's called by email, do we need to say that somewhere?
I think the only thing where we could get maybe in a little bit of questionable water is that when we say our board meetings are always open. And so if we did some sort of business, just an email that's only amongst us, then somebody might complain.
It could be seen as a closed board meeting.
Correct.
And also, does that automatically, just because they received an email, does that mean that an officer is active and present? And so that nullifies the, one of the three missing meetings?
Depends on if they participated in the email discussion or not. Generally,
I'm just playing devil's advocate,
I understand.
If I might make one brief suggestion,
Go for it.
Leaning towards an idea similar to what Metro did on this, which I think Metro's proposed bylaws. We wrote these just in time to not be able to have votes according to our bylaws, because we can't have votes at a digital meeting. But the proposed bylaws for Metro currently say something along the lines of board meetings must be live interaction, either digitally or in person, but the board can make board decisions via email. But it's not a board meeting.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't remember what the specific wording is, and I'm getting a couple minutes from home here. I can pull it up in a second.
Yeah, we'll wait until you get home and you can pull that up. I like that a lot.
Okay.
Because that gets rid of the fuzziness of, hey, our meeting wasn't really open.
Right. It wasn't a meeting. It was board deciding something, but it wasn't actually a meeting.
Right.
And then the board member that didn't respond to an email in time isn't on the charts as missing a board meeting either.
Correct. Right. Yeah. No, we never counted that as a missed meeting.
Okay.
Let's see. Rex, in the discussion on the Facebook group, you had brought up the thing about area reps and stuff.
Right.
I like the idea for it, at least for the short term, being a committee, and then And then if we want to expand them into a bigger board, we can do that.
I agree. That way we don't have to worry about ratifying and it passing and everything. Just keep it as a committee and it's, you know, off the bylaws.
Right. That did plant something in my head that perhaps we do need another committee outlined. And we kind of talked about this a little bit, but then we got off on another track. It's a vetting committee for membership.
Yeah.
Do we need to specify that in the bylaws, or, I mean, because the bylaws don't talk about any vetting of members other than, well, let me get to where the membership is. Oh, I passed it.
There was, I mean, you could just say the board has the right to vet members, and then the board could do it by committee, and just giving the board freedom to decide how. If we think a process for how needs to be set in stone, then
Yeah.
we need to do it.
Okay. What's written right now is the board shall propose a set of criteria for acceptance of new members. And then this criteria shall be approved by a vote of the membership.
Okay.
Does that mean that the vetting committee has to be approved by the membership, or just the criteria? I think it's just the criteria.
I think it's just the criteria.
Yeah,
Back
the
in that
methods
starting place.
are up to us.
All right, so the vetting has to be approved by members, but the members have to be vetted in order to approve it. We're back in a
Well, I mean, we do have to come up with some way to have a.
Careful.
Oh, you're echoing.
Am I making weird noises?
Not now. You were.
I'm getting out of the car. I'm about to be on Wi-Fi again instead of cell service.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I think we kind of agreed in principle that our initial set of members, we needed to pretty much vet each other.
Right. I'm just saying, even to vet each other, we need to know what the criteria are first, though.
Correct. Yeah, we definitely need to come up with the criteria.
And the background for just a second. Yeah. I mean, there's no putting it off. We need it now, whether it's in the bylaws or not.
Yeah. I think it should be a separate document, but you're right. We need to do it now.
Yeah. I like it as a second document.
You got reverberation there. You got reverberation there, Ryan.
Some of us have.
Hello.
Yeah.
All right. I am connecting via Wi-Fi also now, so I'm about to come back into the meeting in just a moment.
Okay.
If you can hear me. I don't know if you can or not.
I can still hear you. Yeah. Ryan's audio.
Hello?
Crap. Oh. I lost them both. You're almost there.
Okay, I can see you now.
Hey there.
Okay, I can hear you. Good.
All right. We still lost Ryan, but
Well, and I think I got to my house right about the same time he got to his. So he
yeah.
may have to exit and come back in.
Okay. I just started a new document in that same folder with the bylaws
Okay.
called Membership Vetting Criteria. And there's absolutely nothing in it except a heading.
That sounds like a good set of criteria.
Well, except Voldemort could qualify now.
Oh, no.
So we don't want that.
So you must not have petitioned the legislature for. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I would love to stick something in there that says you can't sponsor legislation which makes you the only way to get training for bee removals.
Yeah.
But there's more than actually just that one Voldemort. There's a couple of others.
There are.
In fact, somebody contacted me about somebody up in Dallas.
Yep, that's who I'm thinking of.
Oh, is it the person that tried to charge $2,500 for removal? And then when the person said, no, I don't want to, they wanted to charge them $500 for looking at it.
Oh, I don't know who that was. I hadn't seen that one.
Oh, yeah, who was it? It's Alex Perrywinkler, who you said has an alias.
Really?
He said,
Or he reported that, or he had done that.
what? Oh, he said somebody else was doing it, and then he said the person who did it was Mike Chenault.
I don't know Mike. I've heard the name, but I don't know him.
I've seen stuff from Mike before, and that doesn't sound like him.
You know, and there are some companies up here that will charge a fee for, just coming out and look. But, $50, $75, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, if it's out of the way, I'll charge $35 for it.
Yeah.
But that's typical. Yeah, he wanted to charge $250. Oh, wait, just for coming out.
I wonder how far he had to drive.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like Mike. I mean, I don't know Mike personally, but I've seen some of his stuff, and I've never got the impression that he's like that. But now I'm curious. Yeah, I don't see anything. His personal Facebook page is something totally different. So,
I'm friends with Mike Chenault.
yeah, so am I.
Out of Creechville, Texas. I don't even know where that's at.
I don't either.
Oh, that's okay. Apparently that's somewhere here south of the Metroplex. So it probably doesn't even warrant being on a map.
Oh, it says his business is located in Ennis.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Well, I'll leave that alone because that's just hearsay.
It's hearsay, and that's between the customer and him, honestly.
Yeah.
That's business.
But okay, the bylaws. You want to look at them real quick and see what I put in there?
Yeah, let me open them up real quick. Find the meeting link again. Texas Professional, Texas Association, Texas what is it?
Okay, well, I see Ryan is connected to the Google Drive.
You probably had to go inside and let nature take its course for a minute and
Possibly.
settle in, then connect. All right.
Okay. See, actually, I don't think we need.
Did some of the comments get removed from the meeting or from the event for today?
Well,
I see the one saying time and date corrected, and that's the only one I see.
okay.
I wonder if I can change view. That's recent activity.
Let me see. Viewing. No, that doesn't help. Well, there were some things in here that were.
Because I had posted in there, and I don't see that note anymore.
I think what I did was if you click on the checkbox, it'll accept that edit and make it like final draft.
Oh, I'm not even in the document. I'm just in the event.
Oh, you're in the event.
I'm trying. Yeah, I'm trying to find the link to the document.
Oh, let me give you the link again.
Oh, there's my comment. Okay. Okay, I found the link.
I just gave it to you.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, the link was in the previous one, but not this one.
Okay, so we are on what article? Officers
Well,
and board?
if we go to Article 3, just definitions,
Okay.
there's actually 3 definitions here that I think we can take out because they were kind of. Oh, we got a question mark in here. Okay, yeah, 4, 5, and 7. Since we are nowhere do we separate the idea between a non-structural colony versus a structural colony in our membership.
Right.
I don't think we need to worry about defining them separately. And we have colony up above. So kind of want Ryan to get here first.
Tell you what, while we're waiting for a minute, I'm going to go grab some water real quick.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
All right, no problem.
I can see us putting out, monthly tips on removals like people do for, your beekeeping 101 folks. What are we doing this month? We're making sure we stay hydrated and don't overheat.
Yeah. Or you can do what I do is if I look at the calendar and see what the heat index is going to be for that day,
Mm-hmm.
if it's too high, I say, hey, Justin, why don't you go do this removal? It's a nice benefit of being semi-retired where I don't have to take every job.
No is an acceptable answer, or
Yeah.
an acceptable response on some jobs.
Did you see that the pictures of the ones Jennifer Scott did today
I did.
on the chimney?
That wasn't a chimney. I saw some ones she posted that was a column, like a column in front of a house or some kind of building.
Oh no, there was a chimney that she did.
Oh wow, I didn't see that one.
Way up above the roof line.
Oh no, I didn't see that.
Yeah, they were between the inner flute and the outer bricks, and yeah, it looked pretty. I mean, there was some nice removal of the bricks halfway down, but
oh man,
I can't imagine doing that from a stepladder. The last time I did a brick job, my neighbor, I'm lucky enough that my neighbor is a brick contractor. And have you ever seen those ArborTech tools?
I don't think so.
It's like a little crosscut saw that cuts more.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
It's a $1,200 saw.
Okay. I think once everyone saw advertised on Facebook like a year or so ago.
Yeah, it's that.
Yeah.
He let me borrow his, and it's like it's worth every bit of $1,200. It was basically just like using a sawzall to cut through brick.
How long do the blades last on that thing?
We had 3 or 4 extra blades, and we changed them, I think, just once.
Okay.
But then we were cutting through just the mortar, so
right.
It wasn't that bad.
Well, sometimes they do the mortar. Depends on how they mix it. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's easy.
Yeah, this was the peak of a church. The tall part, where they put the big cross behind the sanctuary,
mm-hmm.
and it was right at the top of it. And the sad part, inside, they were getting in through like a skylight, and the baptistry probably had 10,000 bees floating in it.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, it was bad enough that it stunk.
Yeah.
But then apparently, between the time we booked the job and the time we got up there and did it, their pest control company came out and sprayed them. Because as soon as we opened up the brick, it was just a cleanup job. There were no dead bees or no alive bees.
That sucks.
So
Go through that effort. I
yeah,
had one today. I went and looked at a week ago and gave a bid and evaled it, and there was probably 20,000 bees sitting out front of the peak of the soffit. And went today to do the removal, and the only thing in there was baby bees emerging from their cells. They had absconded and left their comb. It got too hot.
mm,
You know, they moved in, and then the sun has shifted in the sky, and it's just getting too hot.
oh yeah, was comb falling down?
It looked like it had been falling down for 10 years. It was black.
Oh, oh man, those are nasty.
So, yeah.
But do you have
I don't
Rex's
know if
phone number? I was going to text him and find out where he's at.
Ryan's.
Ryan's, yes.
Let me see here. See if I can do this without.
Oh, I'm not using my phone if it were better. Actually, I got my phone sitting right here. Let me do it.
You got his number?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. My laptop doesn't have a camera on it, so just use it for looking at the documents. Okay, I see Jennifer's post on the chimney now. Yeah, it looked like it was several days ago. I'd missed that. Yeah, a picture of the Queen.
Are you looking at the definitions?
Yes, I've got it open here.
Okay. What do you think about removing 4, 5, and 7?
Well, 7 looks like what we have on 9 currently.
Yeah, and 9 is the one that has the corrected wording.
7 is too specific on things anyway. You know,
Yeah.
it's 90% of colonies into a hive body for purpose of creating colonies.
Well, 9 says that too.
Well, let me scroll down. Okay, okay.
That's basically to avoid those people that go out and get bees and release them.
They say they're releasing them. You know, they're leaving them in a hot vacuum box to die and just dumping them.
Well, probably that too. But who was it? It was Mark Lockhart. I was shocked when he said that that's what he does. So are you okay with deleting 4, 5, and 7?
I just looked at 7. Let me look at 4 and 5. Non-structural. Are we deleting 4 because it's just not referenced anywhere else in our?
Yeah, because we don't differentiate that in the membership type.
I mean, removal is removal and we get paid for it. I don't care if it's in a building or in a valve box.
Yeah, it's really the only difference is whether you're removing a colony or just a swarm.
Right.
So, okay. Well then, let's do this. Oops. Yeah. All right. I really don't want to do these until Ryan has a chance to say something.
Has he responded to your text yet?
No.
I wonder if he's dealing with other animals or something since he got home.
Maybe.
You know, he's been posting pictures of quail eggs and things like that.
Well, you know what? Let's just leave this there, and move on down.
Okay.
Trying to see what was the other thing that we.
On
Oh.
9, it's you're removing the line and forced to cut into the structure. Okay.
Yeah, because
I mean, we could force
we're
the
not
conform of the
differentiating
building.
between those two, so.
Yeah, yeah.
There
he is.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Hey, there he is.
All right. Sorry.
That's okay.
Oh.
You settled now?
Yeah, feeling like it was a long day, but I'm here now.
Okay. Rex and I were just looking at the definitions in Article 3, and there's really 3 of them that, since we pared down our membership types, I don't think we need those 3 definitions anymore.
I mean, unless you define them in some way.
Well,
I don't want it to sound like we're saying these are just membership classes and you can choose to be either. That would be my only hesitancy.
well, I mean, I think if we're going to have definitions in the bylaws, they need to be specific to what the bylaws deal with. Otherwise, we can have definitions for a host of things.
Absolutely. I guess the question is, are the bylaws requiring that to be a professional remover, you do this? Or, this?
Well, it's kind of defined right here, too, in 9. And 9, I mean, to me, 9 and 7 are almost identical. And the only difference is 9 is the one where I use the wording that we use below. But I could have just as easily put that in 7.
You're talking about Article 9?
No.
Under definitions,
Under
it's
definition,
Article 3.
Definition number 7 and definition number 9.
Gotcha. Sorry, I was getting lost. Yeah, I mean, if we don't define what that is, then it's left to the board as part of the vetting process to define what that is, right?
Well, I mean, we're defining what a colony removal professional is. It's somebody who removes a colony that has comb from a structure.
Steve's in the waiting room.
Oh, okay. Let me get Steve in here.
Hey, Steve. I'm guessing he's text only again.
Let me put chat back in here. Yeah, Steve is text only, so try to keep an eye on the chat in case I miss something. Basically, Steve, Ryan just got connected here too. He'd been on the road. We're back up in Article 3 definitions. Do you have the bylaws open in a separate screen? I hope.
I'm just hovering a little bit for a second. Sorry, guys.
No, that's fine. I was kind of okay. Now he's getting there now. Um, Basically, what we're talking about is whether we can pare down some of these definitions or not. Especially, to me, 7 and 9 under Section 1 of Article 3 are almost identical. So I don't see any reason to have both of them. Other than using the term colony removal professional, since that's what we use below.
Yeah, I understand and like the idea of getting rid of redundancy. I just want to make sure that we didn't have one because it was a member class and one because it was a description of what our members do.
Right. Well, if we just use colony removal professional and put that in 7, then we could get rid of 9 and leave everything else. What do you think?
Which is the preferred terminology as we go through this document?
Well,
which is the member class?
From here down, everything uses the terms in 8 and 9. In other words, swarm removal specialist or colony removal professional.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Those are the terms used below.
Then let's get rid of 7.
Okay. Well, 7. If we're going to keep 4 and 5, then I think what we might do is just make 7 use the terms that we use, like that.
I guess we started off like a professional live bee removal specialist did both.
Right, but since the membership, we don't define them differently.
Right. Okay.
There's not really, to me, a purpose in defining non-structural colonies versus structural colonies.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you want to get rid of 4, 5, and 7 and keep 9?
I mean, certainly we shouldn't skip the number 7.
Well, they'll renumber on their own.
Right. I think I like the wording better in 9, though.
Okay, well then let's do this. Like that. And then in now 8, which was 9, I would like to take out the it and is forced to cut into the structure now, since we're not separating those.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
I do think we should consider changing "does not repair" to "may not repair."
Either that or remove it completely.
Let's remove it completely.
Correct, Steve?
Looking at number 8 under
This part right there.
Yeah, let's I'd say remove that.
Okay.
I think that's up to each individual removal professional to.
And it really doesn't have anything to do with the removal.
Right.
Okay.
Since we have, I don't think, any other mention of cutout in these bylaws.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Everyone's business model is going to be different on how they interact with their customers and what they sell.
We need to change the question mark to a period. Or just receives compensation. I think that implies compensation in the form of money without saying it. And then we can do the same thing right here.
Although someone could argue they received compensation in Bs, which I guess is why we said it that way.
All right, receives monetary compensation.
Yeah, I think we end up wanting to say monetary to rule out the fact that somebody's going to try and say the Bs are worth it.
Yeah. Then we're back to a hobbyist who's claiming to be a pro.
Do we on 7 for the swarms? Do we want to say they receive monetary compensation for a swarm? Because frankly, I don't.
I do.
Frequently I do, and if I do them for free, I always ask for a donation to the club, but I don't always get it.
Most of the time when it comes to a swarm, when people call me, it's if I feel like doing it, I'll go do it for free. If I don't, I give it to somebody else who then does it for free themselves. We've got so many people in our club up here that will race to get swarms that at least here it's hard to charge for swarms.
I personally don't swarm chase.
I don't either. If they call me, I'll go do it, but it's kind of like, if I feel like it or if I don't feel like it.
I give them a price, and they can choose to call someone else if they don't like my price.
Yeah, and I would have to. That does seem like the professional approach. By implying that maybe that's not the approach, I guess we're kind of leaving the realm of professional to some degree.
Well, I know that when I wish Brandon was here because he and I think Ed too, they both wanted the I'm not in camera anymore. They both wanted like a way to get into the removals, and they kind of viewed this as the step in, along with the training classes and stuff like that we were going to do.
So we don't think compensation is necessarily a requirement then?
Well, it doesn't say swarm removal professional. It says specialist.
Right. And in this case, we mean specialist to say doesn't do this, not really is extra great at this.
Right, yeah. I'm not married to any of it. I'm willing to go with whatever you guys feel is the best way to do it. Steve said he gets paid for swarms unless it's within 2 to 5 miles.
Yeah, if it's close enough, I'll pick up a freebie in my neighborhood. If it's especially good community relations, I'll pick up a freebie. And I picked one up off of the median of Swiss Avenue, I think, last year. And it was just the nicest street in town and a chance to go do that. So it depends, but I guess I kind of feel like we expect you to get paid occasionally, but maybe that's not reasonable, especially everywhere in Texas.
Well, okay, let's think about it this way. Let's think about if we leave it in or if we take it out. If we leave it in, are people who would want to join the organization so that they get on our call list, would they look at that and think, oh, I'm not qualified, and would it stop them from joining?
No, they'd probably just claim they got paid once before.
Okay.
And Steve just had some input.
Yeah, Steve likes the idea of it lets beginners get their foot in the door. And see, that's what both Brandon and Ed were saying too.
But what I don't like about it is if we're not limiting this to people that receive compensation, then we're setting ourselves up for our own website to connect people to swarm removal specialists who compete with us by not charging.
Okay, well, like I said, I'm okay with leaving it in.
I mean, you get what
I think we should.
You get what I'm saying, right? If
yes, I absolutely get what you're saying.
Customers are browsing this website and and I'm going to leave myself out of it and pick on Rex for a second. Customers are browsing the website. Rex is charging to pick up a swarm, and let's say I'm not. Do we really want to provide those two contacts both on the website? Is Rex ever going to get a swarm off of contacts via this website if the other list does it for free?
I accept the fact that people are going to chase swarms for free. That's why I charge, because I don't want to. I'm tired. When I was young and first in it, yeah, I would drive all over town looking for swarms, or, chasing those calls, and I don't have time for that anymore. Especially, since they don't pay as well as other jobs. So.
Okay.
I guess let's leave receives compensation off of the swarm thing for now, would be my 2 cents.
You sure?
No?
Because I think you would convince me to leave it on.
I don't want the people who saw it as a way in to be unhappy with us for changing that.
Okay.
For having that.
And I also submit that we are supposed to be representing a professional organization. And to me, that means that we do receive compensation for what we do.
I think that's a big,
whether it's entry level or whether it's a higher level of cutouts.
Yeah, I think that's probably the overriding thing right there.
At the end of the day, doing it for free is doing it as a hobbyist, not doing it as a professional.
Right.
True. Okay. Well then, Steve said, yep. I assume that means, Steve, you said we should leave it on there as receives monetary compensation? Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Next. And okay, leave it on.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. And we're gonna leave 4 and 5 in there too, because it kind of defines what we're doing, even if it's not used below. Okay. Anything else in the definitions that we need to talk about?
I don't think so.
Okay.
The only thing I don't see here that I think we may have used further down, I think we may have used voting member, quote unquote, further down in the document. And I wonder if it needs to be defined here. It may be.
Well, we have member in good standing, but anytime, I mean, down here, right, in fact, right below it, membership types, it specifies, excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. In membership types, where it talks about the 2 different types, it's very specific about swarm capture specialists do not have voting privileges, and colony removal professionals, well, it doesn't say they do, but oh no, it says this membership has voting privileges. So I don't think we need it above because it's so explicit right there.
Okay. All right. Just double checking. I remembered us using that term towards the end. No, I think we're good on definitions then.
Okay. Membership. Let's see. I don't think this has a. Oh, that's just an alignment issue. Okay. Style. Oh, these are marked because when I was trying to copy this section, I dorked it up, so I didn't change anything in here. Okay. One of the things that Rex and I talked about, Ryan, while you were switching from your phone to in the house,
yeah,
was section 3, part 4, or paragraph 4. This part, the board shall propose a set of criteria for acceptance of new members. Oh, I think you were there just before you connected. I'm going to share my screen really quick. Share screen. Okay. Okay. I created a new document in that same folder with the bylaws.
Yeah.
Called Membership Vetting Criteria. As you can tell, it's blank.
Yay, we're all in.
So,
I passed.
but I went ahead and created the file here just so that all right, how do I stop share there. I did that just so we had a place to go. My gut is that as soon as we're done with these bylaws, that's the next section we work on.
I don't have any problem with that. That sounds right to me.
Okay. Okay. So since that's a separate document, we can come back to that later.
Okay.
Let's see. Code of ethics. I don't have anything marked that we needed to talk about here.
I do worry that by doing the whole anything that's legal thing, we've set ourselves up to argue. I mean, everything from, Steve made a reference to speeding tickets, but everything from whether it's legal to use soapy water to whether it's legal to use a BVAC to whether it's legal to use honeybee gone to whether it's legal to give honey to your customers or sell honey to your customers. I mean, we all disagree about what's legal. I mean, I can't think of one person that agrees with me on every aspect of what is the legal way to do this. So I don't want to set us up for fighting over it later. Yeah, like Steve's saying, the law is fairly fuzzy on some of this stuff.
Oh, and the law is definitely fuzzy about some of this, which is, I mean, if the law is fuzzy, well, let me back up and say it this way: ethics in our organization supersede law. So the law is like the bottom line. And then the ethics that we have here supersede everything else. So that's why abide by all state and local laws is the first thing, because that's the bottom of it, and we build everything else on top of that. Does that make sense?
It does. I just worry we're going to end up with people arguing about what that means later. But I don't suppose arguing about it now really solves that.
Probably not, but I mean, yeah, like whether or not it's legal to give the honey to the homeowner.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to settle that here, and I don't think we necessarily should. I think.
Right. So
to me, for that specifically, the spirit of the law is we're not supposed to bottle it and sell it to the public.
Right.
To me, that's what the spirit is. Giving it to the homeowner is within the spirit of the law. Whether it's the absolute letter of the law or not, we'll disagree.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's at least within the spirit of the law to some degree. I think it's a major liability is my biggest reason to object to it. It's not an ethics thing so much as just liability concern.
Right. Well, but as far as the organization's concerned, it's a liability for the person doing it, not to the organization.
True. As somebody who says no when a customer asks if they can have honey, I feel quite strongly that everybody else should stop doing that, though. As far as I'm concerned, other people are making my customers unhappy with me by disregarding the law.
So what are you going to do if they cut into their sheetrock and take all the honey out and then call you to come get the brood comb?
I charged like it was all still there, I guess.
To me, that's really the legal aspect of it. Is until I leave their house, it still belongs to them. For that matter, the bees do too. You know, if they want to put the bees in a hive box, they're their bees. I can't tell them no.
Okay.
They're paying me to get them out of the wall safely.
Well, let's skip by that right now.
I agree. I agree. I think we hashed out the rest of these pretty thoroughly. We want people to be a beekeeper with at least 2 hives. That's a pretty low bar. Perform live removals whenever possible. Lethal approaches should only be used if and when all other reasonable approaches have been deemed unsafe or infeasible. To me, that's the one that we're leaving the door a little too wide open on.
I hate even mentioning lethal approaches.
I do too.
I do too.
Mean, the pest control side of things, you know, very definitely says that we are to be chemical free on our removals.
Yeah, it doesn't say non-lethal though. It does say we're allowed to kill bees. We're only allowed to do it using equipment that we use in the bee yard though.
We use water in the bee yard.
Well, some people will keep a pump-up sprayer, you know, that's full of water and soap, you know.
I can't imagine what use soapy water has in the bee yard, actually.
I can't either, not legitimately.
Yeah, I agree.
Whereas, you know, bee vacuum, for example, I can legitimately imagine somebody collecting a swarm or conceivably clearing a honey zooper with one, although I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
But at least I can justify using one to collect a swarm off a tall tree branch.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, I use beevacs to get swarms off of chain link fences.
Okay.
You know, where the bees are so intertwined in the chain that it's just easier to vac them out.
So the law says we have to be acting as a beekeeper. We have to only be using beekeeping equipment. We have to not use chemicals. But it does say we can kill them. It specifically says we can kill them. As far as I can tell, the only reasonable way to do it within those guidelines would be to just vacuum them to death.
So soapy water is not even...
It's only legal to the extent that it's not a chemical and that we use it in the bee yard.
Yeah.
Depending on your definition of chemical, that may or may not be true, but I don't know anyone who legitimately uses it in the bee yard.
I don't either.
But I will say the only reason, I personally, I love the idea of taking all mention of lethal approaches out of here, but we had at least a couple people who were concerned about us doing that came to the meetings. Well,
I know that it's basically all the South Texas people. Dennis, Michael, how do you pronounce the last name? Leonard?
Leidner. Yeah. Michael probably would argue for leaving it. I know.
Dennis definitely does.
Dennis doesn't touch removal work anymore. His voicemail says stop talking to him about removals and call somebody else, or at least did for a minute.
Okay.
I think he may still pick up swarms. He'll do anything if it pays enough, probably. But
I don't know what Michael Lopez's stance on it is. I know he gets them all out alive. He doesn't care if they're Africanist or not.
Yeah, and personally, I don't fall back on lethal approaches no matter what. It's part of my sales pitch that I won't.
Yeah, I do too.
Um, you know, I
I
will
do
say,
know that if we
if we take that second sentence off of number 4,
and just leave it,
it still says the same thing. It just doesn't specifically mention lethal options.
Right.
It still
I
says
agree.
whenever
Just
possible.
whenever possible. Yeah.
So I do like the idea of not specifically mentioning it if we can say the same thing without doing so.
okay. I'm good with that then.
That's kind of a midpoint between the two schools of thought.
Steve is chiming in here saying, we live in Texas and some will kill very Africanized aggressive hives. Far South Texas has very aggressive hives. And he's right, because the further south that people are that I talk to, the more I find people willing to do that.
Well, and you know, we named Michael Leidner a second ago. I know Michael specifically rarely kills them, but he makes no attempt whatsoever to save genetics ever. He vacuums bees, he takes them to the bee yard, he puts them on brood from one of his hives with known genetics, lets them raise a new queen, and absolutely killing the genetics every time. So you can end up without those genetics without throwing soapy water at things.
That's true.
That.
Yeah, that's true. I'm good with taking that second sentence out.
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, do it.
Ooh.
Okay.
I hesitate just a little bit over the word domesticated honeybees.
Yeah, I do too, because they're not really domesticated.
If I changed it to managed?
I'm good.
Correct. Yeah.
Um, 6 is kind of a feel-good statement that doesn't really have any teeth, but I think we talked about that and said, yeah, we kind of need to leave it there, though.
I agree. Yeah, it does need to stay in there.
I mean, if somebody's cussing out customers, we could potentially try and claim it has a little bit of teeth, but it would take something pretty extreme.
Right.
Take advantage of opportunities in the course of business to educate customers and the general public in regards to bee removals and honeybees in general. I think all of us do that naturally. And then 8, I think you put that in there, Ryan. Make the customer happy as long as the customer doesn't want something unsafe, irrational, or otherwise infeasible or inadvisable. I like that.
That looks like it's been reworded from what I saw before.
we tweaked it a little bit. All right, moving on down.
Yeah, Steve said about number 5, there are some people that seem to remove and not intend to keep the removed bees. Yeah, I had a discussion with somebody on the Central Texas page who does a lot of bee removals, and I was shocked to find out that he takes them and just releases them. But I think that absolutely needs to stay there.
Yeah, it doesn't say that you have to manage the colonies. It just says that somebody has to.
Right.
You're not dumping them on the side of the road.
Okay, Article 6 is about officers and board of directors. We talked about that at length in the last meeting.
We did.
So, and I don't see any new notes here. Oh, I added this section down here to the bottom, section 8. And it kind of parallels exactly what the removal from membership is. And it's real simple. It says a member's position as an officer and member of the board of directors may be terminated 1, by resignation. Any officer may resign their position from the board of directors upon written notice to the secretary. By lapsing, a member's position as an officer will be considered as lapsed and automatically terminated if a member is absent from 3 consecutive meetings. Upon termination of membership to the organization itself, as outlined in Article 4, Section 5. So if they're no longer a member of the group, they can't be a board member. And then 4 is when an officer's position on the board of directors is terminated, the secretary shall notify the remaining officers. I thought about putting something in here about chain of command, but it's outlined so explicitly above, I think it'd be redundant.
So the only way the organization could decide to remove an officer would be by the same process that's allowed for removing a member.
Correct. Yeah. And that's pretty well dealt with in that section for, I think it's the next section. No, it's 2 sections down. But it's pretty well dealt with officers in that section too. So I don't think we need to reiterate it here.
Yeah. Some organizations that I've seen bylaws for allow the board to vote a board member off of the board, or allow the membership to vote a board member off of the board without cause, for no reason. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but it looks like it would not be allowed here.
I can't imagine a situation where that would be a good thing. I mean, they only serve a 2-year term anyway. It's like, you got your chance in 2 years.
I could think of somebody that I spent a couple of years on a board with, but I could have spent a little less time on a board with. We could have gotten a lot more done.
Well, yeah, but if you're both elected independently.
Oh, I know. Basically, I think the idea is you've got a 6-member board and you've got one person who's essentially roadblocking board meetings, although always outvoted. Always a voice of dissent and always outvoted. You can just say, you know what, this isn't worth it. You're not helping. I'm okay with the way it is. I'm just thinking out loud.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Y'all okay with the way this is? Oh, Steve wants to know what section we're talking about. It is Article 6, Officers of Board. We added Section 8. It's on page, oh crap, what page are we on here?
7.
Page 7. Page 7. In other sections, we kind of alluded to what happens when a board member is no longer on the board, like above, but we didn't really talk about how board members can leave the board other than being voted out. So that's all this section is. It's pretty generic and it shouldn't be too controversial. Yes, Article 6, Section 8. Yes, Steve. One of the things about Google Documents is that it should update automatically. Yours only goes to Section 5. Is terms the last section you see, Steve? Sorry, guys.
It may just need to be reloaded.
Yeah. Just hit refresh on your browser and see if that gets it. I see Now we have Anonymous Panda. I bet now you're getting it. Did that help, Steve? Can you see it? He didn't say anything. Okay, let's keep going then. Organization Article 7, I don't think we did anything to this. Committees. I don't see any comments on here in the committee.
Does it say that other committees may be able to be created, or is it limited by this list of committees? Oh,
yeah,
other committees.
Section 4,
I see
other
section 4,
committees.
yeah. Okay, there we go. That's good.
So, like the membership committee to vet members, if we wanted to give a committee the power to do that rather than the board having to do it, we can do it.
Okay.
And my guess is that that's probably what's going to end up happening. And Steve said no, he still can't see everything. How many pages do you have total, Steve? Just scroll to the very bottom. We should have 13 pages. You know what, Steve? Let me give you the... Steve, do you have a Gmail account that I can just add to this? Just type it in the chat box. Okay, Steve, you should be getting an email asking you if you want to be able to see this. Okay. All right, back to this. Let's see. Committees, discipline. We kind of hammered discipline to death the other day. Do we need to talk about anything else here?
I just pasted in the part out of the Metro.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I was just getting to the computer and finding it.
That needs to go up to the part about board meetings.
Yeah, probably. And I don't know if we want to adopt it exactly as written there. That's slightly different than what you said in that in this case, it says the people who were present at the last board meeting are the votes required, and it requires a unanimous vote. If you were not present at the last board meeting, your vote is not part of the unanimous requirement.
Yeah, we don't want that.
It got a little bit odd, but.
All right, well, let me add that between section 7 and 8 up in the board meeting and the board in Article 6. So let me add that section.
Steve sees you typing now.
Okay, good. Why is this so weird? Okay. Section 8. Oh, no, it's not section 8. It's just it's paragraph 6 of section 7. Actions. I'm just going to copy this whole thing and then edit it.
And I was working on that too.
Oh, sorry.
Here, I need to figure out where you are in the document.
I am in section 7, article 6, section 7, and I just added paragraph 6. Action without meeting.
Okay. Do you mind if you didn't edit that in yet, did you?
No, I left it verbatim what you pasted it, or what I pasted.
Oh, I lost it. Hang on. Oh no, that's right. It just did the numbering weird.
Yeah.
Okay, I see it. What do we think of that?
I like it, just like you worded it.
That way we've clarified it's not a meeting. If you missed it, you didn't miss a meeting. But anything decided with a majority response consenting is as official as if you voted on it.
So that just covers what we spoke about earlier.
Voting by email.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't say voting by email, but that's what this basically means.
Conducting communications and making decisions by email.
Right.
And then we can remove the reference to holding meetings by email because you can make decisions without it being a meeting.
Yes. Okay. Everybody good with that? I am.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Organization year annual meeting and elections. I think we talked about this at the last meeting. Anything else we need to talk about it? Committees, discipline, amendments. We didn't really talk much about amendments. It's pretty standard fare, though.
How do we define attendance? Steve asks.
Attendance of the board members. In the case of the section that Ryan just added, attendance is not a mandatory thing as long as there's a quorum of officers making the decision. No. In up above where it talks about, let's see, meetings may be held in person, via conference call, or any form of electronic communication. That means if the board holds their meeting via Zoom, anybody who connects on Zoom is said to have been there. Or if it's a meeting in person and somebody Zooms in to that meeting, they count. I think the key part is this line right here where it says meetings shall be conducted in a manner to maximize participation. So any way that somebody is able to participate, as long as they're participating, it counts as attending the meeting. Okay, where were we? Amendments. Amendments may be proposed by the board by petition of at least 10 members of level 2, or by petition of 20% of the members of level 2. And the only reason that 2 and 3 are both there is because we don't know how big the membership is going to be. I would assume that once we have 100 members or so, that the 20% part becomes moot point, because it'll always be hit by the 10. Okay. Dissolution, order of business, and Robert's Rules of Order, and that's it. Anything in that we need to talk about?
We still don't have any reference to conflict of interest policies in place. Is that something we want to consider putting in the bylaws?
Well, I mean, it's kind of up here in section 2 where we say no member may derive a benefit directly from the organization.
Do you have an example of what might be represented by that?
Yeah.
I can give you an example from within my club. I'm not sure I can give an example from within this organization, but like from within my club, since I'm the youth program director, I have excluded, I will not sell nukes to anybody who is in the youth program.
As a conflict of interest. Okay.
Because then I'm selling stuff to the people I'm teaching. There's nothing in the bylaws that prohibit me from doing that, but that's a pretty strong conflict of interest, I think. So it's just something that I've taken upon myself not to do.
I'm going to paste a whole wall of text here if I can. I'm probably better off to do it into the bylaws document if it's okay to.
Sure.
I'm just
Where
gonna
are you gonna put it?
I'm gonna put it all the way at the bottom so it's not messing stuff up on us.
Okay.
And it is a bit of a wall of text, but it's an example of a conflict of interest policy. I'm pulling from the proposed Metro bylaws just because it's the most recent set I participated in.
Steve brings up a great point. Up above where we say level 2 for voting, we don't need to say that. All we need to say is voting member. Because we defined who voting members are. You're right, Steve. We'll fix that here in a second. Okay, conflict of interest. Purpose.
It strikes me as maybe worth detailing, maybe this isn't the exact details, but maybe worth detailing because we are a professional group. We are all promoting our own businesses as well as participating in the organization.
Right.
In fact, they're using the organization to market their business.
Yeah, and so a little bit of explaining why we don't think that's going to create a massive issue might be worthwhile.
Well, I certainly hope it generates a little better business.
Right. Excuse me for just 1 second, guys. I'll be right back.
Yeah,
Sorry.
actually, I need to step out for 1 second too. Actually, Steve, you have editing privileges. You can go up and fix those parts if you wanted to. But I'll go through and look for anywhere it says level 2 and take those out.
Are you talking about changing the wording of level 1 and level 2?
Well, just in the places where we talk about voting members.
Okay.
Because we don't have to say level 2 voting member. We already know what a voting member is.
Right. Removing the redundant words.
I'm reading this giant block of text that Ryan pasted in here.
Where did he paste it?
To the very end, after the Robert's Rules of Order.
Oh, okay. Got it. Would that be someone saying that a director can't sell bee removal services?
I don't think so.
We don't want to say that.
We need to make sure that doesn't say that.
Or is interpreted in that way, because that's our business. And I'm going to think outside the box here and about the legislation that was proposed also. Does it mean that a board member cannot hold a school to teach, bee removal techniques that might satisfy legislation later?
What are we talking about? I came in late on this. Sorry.
Examples of conflicts of interest.
My understanding and experience with conflicts of interest is that the board can decide to do anything, regardless of whether it's a conflict of interest for a board member, as long as that board member doesn't vote on the matter.
Man, this is.
It talks about in this paste version, section 9.3 procedures. It talks about duty to disclose. If you have a conflict of interest, you have to tell the rest of the board, hey, I have a potential conflict of interest here. And then the board decides whether this is an actual conflict of interest. And then if it is an actual conflict of interest, then the remedy is discussed, basically. Can, if appropriate, appoint a disinterested person to investigate alternatives. If there's not a more advantageous transaction, then it doesn't matter if it's a conflict of interest. It's still the best deal for the club. Things like that. So, but my understanding is basically a conflict of interest says, I will not help make this decision. It doesn't say, I am not an option for this decision. So a board member could teach their own classes on removal, certainly, but then if the organization were to consider teaching classes on removal, they might say, well, I've got a conflict of interest. I shouldn't vote on this because maybe I don't want the organization to compete with my classes.
Okay.
Does that sound
Yeah, yes,
right?
I'm beginning.
That's the reasonable scenario,
Yeah, and I think the answer would be they can do whatever they want as an individual, but it may mean that when the organization makes a decision, they don't get to vote in it.
Right, right.
And that's a logical thing.
Y'all, excuse me, I got to grab the power cord from my phone right quick.
Absolutely. For example, one of the organizations I'm on the board of bought nukes from a board member this year. They were the lowest price. They sat out the vote, and the rest of the board, sure enough, voted to go with the low price. And this conflict of interest section is a little bit.
I think Ryan froze. You froze there for a minute, Ryan. You said this section is a little bit.
I said it's a little bit lawyer speak, but I do feel kind of like we need something.
I agree. I like having a conflict of interest part in here.
You just mentioned something. I missed it as it went by the screen.
Right, yeah. It is potentially, yeah, everyone will have a conflict of interest because we're all involved with bee removal.
Right. And I guess the reality is if there's a potential conflict of interest that is shared by the entire board by definition of what the organization is, then the board in that case probably assesses, is there a conflict of interest, and says no.
Right. Well, as long as, I mean, it's okay that the people on the board benefit, as long as they're not benefiting any different than any other member.
I think it's not so much do they benefit as do they get to decide that they benefit. It's the decision making, not the benefiting.
Right, yeah.
The board member that we bought nukes from benefited from selling them to us, but he didn't participate in deciding that that was the best price.
Right. And in that case, it's totally ethical and legitimate.
Yeah.
I was trying to look up above and see where this would go, either under an existing article or.
I think you want it to apply to both the board and to the committees. So it may make sense to have it as its own section. Otherwise, it's going to end up in one or the other, right?
I think the only logical place that it would go, if it goes in an existing one, would be in the ethics article.
Oh, true. It could.
Could be section 2 of Code of Ethics.
Yeah, let's do it there. That's a good spot.
Okay.
And that would, it would as much say that the organization is not going to be performing removals to compete with our members, I mean, that's far-fetched, but.
Okay.
But I could see going to a customer's location if they approved to do trainings.
Yeah. The other thing that we haven't addressed in any way in this set of bylaws is anything that hints towards legislative action. Which at the moment, I think by default would mean that this board of, 6 people could decide on behalf of the organization to support or oppose legislation with or without checking with the members first.
I'm looking at Article 2 objectives, and it's kind of the reason that we're talking about all this is because of legislation.
Right. And yet if we're setting up an organization that doesn't need member support to have a stance on legislation, we're certainly setting ourselves up for some drama.
I think under objectives, we do need to put something about legislation here.
Should we have any sort of poll or vote from the membership to take a stance on legislation? That can be cumbersome, especially as legislative stuff happens and changes fast. But it's a little uncomfortable to think about 6 people deciding what everybody thinks.
Well, to me, I think the decision on how we support specific legislation or oppose specific legislation, I think needs to be a board decision, but it certainly needs to be done with the membership at large telling us where they want us to go. Now, how we quantify that I'm not sure we do quantify that specifically in the bylaws. Although we certainly don't want to be accused of looking like other monolithic organizations.
Well, and we are line 4 of section 1 under objectives does say to be a resource for lawmakers considering potential updates.
Oh, that's true. It is already in our objectives
as being a resource. So.
Well,
yeah. So our involvement is stated there, but the how-to of it is not. I just wonder if we want to make any reference to. I guess if it's not a member vote, maybe it's some sort of vague reference that probably wouldn't have any teeth to being based on pollings of membership or something.
Um,
I don't know if I really want to be on the board or really don't want to be on the board. If being on the board consists of deciding what everybody in the
I
state thinks about any given bill.
what we might need, rather than looking at legislation specifically, I think in Article 6, where we talk about officers and board of directors, perhaps before we start outlining who is an officer, the first thing we need to say is that, or maybe right after that, we need to say the officers and board of directors, the purpose of the direction that they should take. You know, basically a mission statement for the board.
Okay.
In general terms of how they're supposed to operate.
I had at one point brainstormed on the idea that we should require a strong majority for legislative action. And part of me still likes that. Whether it's a board vote or a member vote, you could require a unanimous vote of the board in order to take action on legislation.
Ugh, I hate unanimous. I don't mind big majorities. I hate unanimous because that gives a lot of power to one person.
It does, but the only power it's giving in this case is the power to say the organization has no stance on this. Without a unanimous vote one way or the other, the organization would simply not have a stance on proposed legislation. I don't know. I hate the idea of a simple majority taking a legislative issue.
Oh, I agree. I think it should be more than a simple majority.
But if we're talking board votes, a simple
2/3 is
majority
6. Well, 2/3 is 6. I'm sorry, we've got 6 members. Is that right?
So it's 4.
Yeah, 2/3 would be 4 out of 6.
That's also a simple majority.
That doesn't change anything. We could require 5 out of 6. But I just hate the idea of it being a 51-49 split on the legislative issue, and then the organization goes to bat on it. That's a disaster.
Well, and we could just be a dissemination to our members and say, hey, here's what's being proposed, and we maybe suggest that you, or, look at these different aspects of it and contact your legislator and have them vote yay or nay.
Yeah, and if we were a C3, that would be my understanding of our role in this. As a trade organization, to some extent, I think we're expected, although certainly not required,
right,
to have a stance on something that pertains to our industry. Steve says we do need some guiding principles and suggests make it a 60-40 split. So we're talking at least a strong majority.
60-40 of the board or 60-40 of the voting members?
Members.
Yeah.
60-40 vote of the members to, and the hard part of member votes on legislative stuff is just you get a vote that the membership supports a bill and then somebody changes one line on it. Now what do? Do you go vote again?
Right, yeah.
That's the hard part of that, and I understand that. We need to do it on broad principles.
I agree with Steve, what Steve just said there.
Yeah.
I think that 60-40 needs to be on the gist of proposed legislation and the direction of it, and not necessarily the final wording, as long as the wording hasn't changed what the bill itself is.
Yeah. Minutia can kill you, but it can also be the dividing line between something you love and something you hate.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, as we said when we first got started, the devil's in the details, and this is the devil.
yeah, it is. Um, uh, I guess I would lean towards vote on broad principles and goals. So do you vote on broad principles and goals annually, every 2 years before session?
Well, I think what we do, and this is how I would want to see it happen in practice, when somebody gets a bill out there, or in the case of what's more likely, 4 or 5 different bills, first of all, if it deals, we only deal with those that deal or that talk about bee removal. In other words, I don't think our group should take a stand on generic beekeeping issues.
Unless it,
I
unless it
may
has a bearing
change it.
on.
I may change that.
It's muddy waters there too, because
Yeah, it is. I
a
just
lot of
thought
it
that.
potentially impacts us.
Yeah, I was throwing mud out, and I just didn't like that mud that I threw.
I mean, it's great in theory. I totally agree with you in theory. That's how it should work. It's just they won't be as clearly divided as all that.
But getting back to what I was thinking about to start with before I sidetrack myself,
Oh yeah.
I would like to see when there's a slate of bills that get proposed, that we then basically vote, have the membership vote on what they think that we should do with these. And I'm even okay with the board making recommendations to the membership when we present the vote. Assuming the board is fairly unanimous about what we're talking about. You know, if it's a proposal to make one person in charge of all training and it goes through him, I don't think there's going to be much discussion on the board. Everybody's going to be against it. And so I'm perfectly happy with the board saying, here's the proposed legislation, here's what we think about it, we want your input before we go talk to the legislators in Austin.
You know, it's
Steve asked if a Facebook poll would be good enough. I don't think so, because I would want to restrict the vote to just our members.
Right, I agree.
What if the board unanimous could take a stance on a legislative issue, and without a unanimous vote, it has to be put to a membership vote?
I like that. That's okay. Because honestly,
then if Walter's throwing some nonsense at the wall again to see if it'll stick, the board can just step up and say, you know what, we all agree this is nonsense. But if there's something that really needs discussion, it would get discussion.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good way to do it. That way, the board doesn't have to waste, I hate to say polling our members is wasting time, but it allows us to be more responsive to legislative efforts that might be a quick turnaround time.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of like the idea of requiring the board to be unanimous to take a stance without the members, or get some at least semi-formal representation of what the members want.
Okay.
It's not unanimous.
I like that a lot.
It kind of tries to touch on both the upside of being able to do things quickly when you need to, and yet still not looking like people don't get input.
Yes. Can you write that part up?
Yeah, let me think what that looks like.
Okay.
Where am I writing it first off?
Um, actually, I think what we need to do is up in Article 6 under officers and board of directors. Well, would it really go there, or would it be?
Maybe under duties of officers.
Yeah, you could define it under officers because they're the ones that are allowed to make the decision unanimously. And if they can't make a decision unanimously, they're the ones that are required to get a vote of the membership.
Okay, I would actually make it section 1 under officers and board of directors, and then renumber everything below it as needed. I would start off this article with that directive of what the board officers are supposed to do.
Okay, I like the idea of going towards the top. What do you think about going section 3? So we have who the officers are, we have that they make up the board of directors, and then we're going to talk about having defined them. What do they
Okay,
do?
I'm good with that too. While you do that, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and see if I can format the conflict of interest section.
Okay.
Come on.
I like the idea of being able to do a kind of informal poll, but there's no good way to write it that has any teeth at all. I'm pretty sure we either have to make it a vote or we're just letting the board decide.
You're talking about getting input from the membership.
Yeah.
You could say something like seeking a strong direction of input from the membership or something like that.
I don't know. I just took a stab at it. Y'all are gonna have to let me know what you think.
All right, let me scroll up.
Board action on legislative issues impacting bee removal. The officers of this organization may determine the organization's stance on legislative issues provided that the board vote is unanimous. Absent a unanimous vote of the board, the organization may only take such stances as have the documented support of a 2/3 majority of the membership. Responding membership. I'm trying not to say voting.
Yes.
Documented and responding.
And so if there's no official stance that is even voted on by members, then we can just present the options and say, vote as you see fit.
Right. I think we're definitely able to inform our members of the situation. I think even some broad strokes interpretation is probably reasonable. Well, basically, there's two lines here. There's one, this is the stance of the organization, and we're sending out an email to our members saying this is the organization's stance, help us take it. And two is, this is the organization's stance, and we're sending someone to Austin to show up, take the microphone, and say this is the opinion of this organization.
But if it's a unanimous vote of the board, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, that's why they elect the board.
Are we okay with 2/3 majority of the responding membership?
Yeah.
So if the board got a 5 out of 6 vote, then they would put it to the membership. If the membership voted 51 to 49, then the organization takes no stance.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
And I'll start fixing some of these numbers.
Okay. I'm going to go back down and see if I can get this formatted correctly.
Okay. I think I got those numbers fixed. All right, I'll be back in a second. Sorry, I got too much going on today.
Still working on formatting the bottom.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Uh, come on. See, there we go.
So I guess we're going to go through this section at some point in the future and nitpick each line also, right?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
I was hoping we could finish it up, but Steve asked if there's any sense in that Yahoo and Austin planning a second attempt. I saw something on his Facebook page the other day where it certainly indicated yes, he was still wanting to do something like that. Oops. Right now, I'm just worrying about formatting. I haven't even started trying to reword some of this because it's got the corporation and crap like that in here. Okay. It's at least formatted to match the rest of our stuff. Organization.
Oh, I see his post on June 3rd. No fee by 2021. Help me pass legislation.
Oh, yeah.
I think the only person who clicked like on that is his mother.
I'm going to pause so I can answer
From
Steve's
Steve
question.
to all, what's the name again? Meaning,
Okay, we're unpaused, so don't name him now.
okay.
Voldemort. Henceforth named as Voldemort. Okay. All right. Oops. There.
Hey, Chris, I think I've got to turn in. I've got my
Okay.
wake up time. My wake up time is 5 a.m. and
All right, that's cool. I'm just
hash.
hammering through this. So
This is a whole section to have to hash through again. So
yes, it is. I guess next time we'll finish this and then start talking about the vetting committee and procedures.
okay,
Procedures for the vetting committee.
right, and their criteria.
Right. So, all right, I'll put another event out there. Definitely when you and Ryan and Steve can make it, since you guys have been the ones hammering through this the most with me. We'll include other people as available.
Let me look at my calendar right now.
Okay.
Looking at evening, probably 8 o'clock again, or
It works for me.
let's see. I think Wednesday evening I'm open this week. Friday night I'm open, but that's your poker night, isn't it?
Yep.
This weekend is I'm going to be out Saturday and Sunday, and Sunday's Father's Day.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be extracting honey Saturday, and then Sunday's Father's Day. We can try Wednesday. I'll check and make sure.
Yeah, if we do it this week, Wednesday is probably my only day open, and then I've got a load of queens coming in next Tuesday. So I'd be looking at the 26th.
Okay. I will. I'll check with
Wednesday's
Brian
good
to
for
make
me.
sure that time works for him too.
Okay.
And assuming it does, I'll put it on the event on the Facebook page.
Okay. Y'all have a good night.
All right, you too, man.
All right.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Ryan. Rex.